Okay, I got my Keycaster over here. I mean my, whatever it's called. So, hey guys, I'm back with another episode of this SpeedCube design thing. And I got a couple new things or a couple new tools or whatever. I have my little Keycaster here, so when I press Shift S, or anything like that, then you guys can see me do it. And I also got another mic, so tell me what you guys think about that in the description compared to my last video. So yeah, let's see, what are we gonna do today? I think we're gonna do the corner. So we have the corner, the center, and I think that's pretty much it, but let's do the corner first because it's a little bit simpler. So I'm gonna click on this, right click on it, and then say hide other parts. And let's just get started with this. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of this nasty face here because like right here, you see these? I don't like these faces, so I'm gonna replace them with another face. So to do that, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a plane. So the way you do that is first select 3 points, and then on this little drop-down menu here, you want to say plane. Or if you don't click on the points first, you can click on plane, then click 3 point, and then after you've clicked 3 point, select 3 points. Let's see here. I think that'll be good. I'm not sure. I want to make sure that it intersects all here. It's not too important. Like I don't want it to be. I guess I'll just show you guys. So make it plain, and then we're going to use another one of those tools that you don't really use that often, but that's pretty useful. So this tool is called Replace Face, and when I first saw it, I thought it would be kind of complicated, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to learn how to use it or whatever, but I managed to figure it out, and I'm going to show you guys how to use it too. So what this basically does is it takes faces or planes or whatever, and you take those faces and you replace them with another face. So I'm going to take these faces over here that are from the spherical cuts, or actually they're from the cylindrical cuts, and then I'm going to replace them with this, and hopefully this will work. Let's move it back a little bit. Oh, come on. I think I may need to change one thing, so I'm going to click X and go back to our first sketch once again. Let's see. If we take this line here, oh, come on. It's not working. Let me reload the page. Okay, let me make sure everything's here. Okay, so I'm gonna go back into the first sketch. Press N to go normal to it. And then I'm gonna take this line here. Why is it doing this? And I'm gonna get rid of that, and I'm gonna use a center point arc instead. Click on the center, click on that point, and click down over here, press escape, and then you click on these 2 points and you press I, and that'll join them together. And what that will do is it'll make it actually a spherical cut instead of a cylindrical cut. So I'm going to press escape. Come on. Just click the check mark. Oh, I'm going to have to re-click on all these different lines. Circular pattern here. no, not circular pattern, revolve. I want to edit the revolve. And right now it's making these as two separate surfaces because I deleted the edge, so I'm going to click here and make that one surface. Hopefully that'll work. If it doesn't, there you go. So now you see this is a spherical face, where before it looked a little bit different. So now I'm going to go back to replace face, and I'm going to choose these three faces, and the surface to replace with is this one. There you go. That's how it's supposed to work. And you can see I can grab the slider here, move it down, move it back, or whatever. I'm actually gonna make that 0 because we can use move face to move it after that. Click the little check mark, and now we have a flat face to work with. There's a couple things which I can do before I get too in depth with rounding this corner off along these edges. So let me just do that real quick. So we're gonna use a fillet. We're gonna click here, here, and here, just to round this corner off. I know some designs don't round the corners off so much, but personally I like rounding them off like that. Maybe not 5 millimeters. How about, oh, come on, 3. That looks pretty good. You'll notice this thing tracks all the different keys, so and that way it's kind of annoying, but it's better than nothing. So let's click the little check mark, and on top of that we can also fillet this little thing over here. So I'm going to click these 3 edges here, and let's make that 2 millimeter. Come on, maybe 1. There you go. Just round that off a little bit. I wonder why it doesn't work. Maybe 1.5. Oh, so 1.25 maybe. The reason it didn't work was because, oh man, 1.25. There you go. The reason it didn't work before is because if this fillet, you see this line here and this line here, if those two lines cross each other, which was what would happen if I made a 2 millimeter fillet, then it can't make the fillet because it wouldn't work. So now that fillet's done, and I think I'll wait to do the other stuff that I would usually do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this plane, this flat plane here that we made. By the way, you can get rid of this plane here by pressing plane P, P to show all planes, and then P again to hide all planes. So I'm going to click there, Shift S, N to be normal to, and I think I'm going to use a cross-section view. So if you go over here, or section view, that's what they call it. I'm going to click on this plane here, and you can see there's a little thing here that you can move. I'm going to just set that to 0. And what that'll do is it'll basically make a cross-section of your design. So here I'm just using that to cut off the thing, but what you could do is you could make a plane that cuts the cube in half, and then you could use cross-section to look at the pieces cut in half, or stuff like that. Anyhow, I'm gonna, oh, I didn't want that plane. Whoops. Let's turn section view off, turn section view on, and I don't want that plane. There you go. I just want that plane. Click the little check mark to finish that off. So yeah, I'm gonna click on here, Shift S. Oh, I already am in a sketch. Didn't notice that. So I am going to make, I'm going to use these lines. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this line, and this line, and then I'm going to fillet the edges to make what I'm going to use. So over here, this is tool. This tool is called Use, or Project, and what you do with that is you click on lines, and it'll convert those lines into lines in the sketch. But it's not just that it does. You can also project any random point onto it. So if I press N to go normal, I can click on this little point here, and it'll project that onto the plane. So now I have that little point there. Let me press Command Z, just get rid of that. So now that I'm done with that, I'm going to use the fillet tool inside of the sketch, and I'm going to click on these 2 points. It works a little bit differently, but it's still pretty similar. And then I'm going to click on these 2 points and these 2 points. That looks pretty good. Press enter just to dismiss that little menu, and then I'm going to let's see here, extrude. So click on extrude, and I want to go I want to say intersect, and ooh, maybe not intersect. Let me see. I'm gonna turn off section view. Ooh, turn section view off. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do intersect. I may be able to, but I don't think so. Anyhow, let's see. First thing I want to do, let me just try using intersect. Is I'm gonna do this, and then I want to say draft. And what that's going to do is it's going to sort of move it out by a couple degrees. So let's try 30 degrees. Still a little bit, I'd like a little bit less, I think. Let's try 45 degrees. No, that's too much. 35 degrees. That's pretty good. Again, you want a little bit of contact area here where you're going to put the magnets. So maybe I'll make it 40 degrees. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then let me see if I can get this other part here, because intersection basically takes the one solid. I can show you what the solid looks like. That's what the solid looks like. So it takes these two shapes, and everything that's contained within both of them, it uses that as that's what the new part is that's created. So I'm going to click intersection, and then I'm going to say second end position. And how about we draft that one as well? Just make it 60 degrees. There you go. So that way, basically what I did, I'll show you what the surface looks like now. I just created something, and so all of this foot here is included. Oh, whoops. I want to make sure it's on intersect. There you go. Another way that we could have done this, let me just right click on this extrude and say suppress. That'll just sort of like undo it. Is you can use the fillet tool, and I believe I'm going to be using this later on, but I might as well just show you now. And then let's say we want it to be 5 millimeters, or a little bit more than that. Let's say 7 millimeters, or 8. There you go. And then after you've done that, you can make a second a second value or whatever. So you can select, let me see, I think there's a way to do this. Where you select these vertices and you can make them like, let's say 7. Let me just do one at a time just to see if I can get it right. I want this one and 8. If I make it 8, then it's just the same. If I make it 7, oh, never mind. I don't think this may not work. Let me try making it 9. There you go. There you go. I guess for some reason it doesn't want me to make it a smaller value, but I can make it a larger value. So I also want that one and that one. And so what that does is it basically goes from this value, or the value of that fillet, to the value of that fillet. So when the pieces, when this corner piece is on top of the other piece, you'll notice that it's good for, let me see. You want this fillet to go from smaller to larger, because when the pieces are misaligned and it's important for, like, and you actually need the fillet, then you want this line right here to line up with the piece, because that's the line where the tapering ends or whatever. Like if you don't have this, it's just a straight line, and so the line is basically like that, because this fillet area over here doesn't even matter. But if you put that stuff back, then the line is closer to what you'd actually need. Let me just suppress this and show you what the other one did. So the other one did a simpler thing. It's just I wanted to try using the extrude instead of the other one, and it looks a little bit cooler right there, if I do say so myself. So yeah, now that we've done that, you'll notice that we have a huge gap here. So the conventional thing to do here is to square off the corners. So I know a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but some people don't like squared off corners, and that's okay. Good for you. But I'm just going by what I see the most of in speed cubes. So I'm gonna click on this face here. It doesn't really matter which face you do, and press Shift S, and then N to be normal to, and I'm just gonna draw a rectangle. So I'm just gonna drag it out, place it some random place, and then once again I'm gonna use I. You can see right there I pressed I to place these to make them coincident. And so I made this line and that line there coincident, and this line and that line, and then I'll just make sure that it's exactly the same dimensions. And then we can do a little bit of an extrude. I want to say add, let's reverse the direction, and let's make that 1 millimeter. That may be a little bit much, but no, that's good. So I think, yeah, that's pretty good. Might want to make it a little bit more. Let's try 1.5. Yeah, that's good. You could probably make it a little bit thinner on a actual Rubik's Cube, but if you're 3D printing it, it's nice to keep it a little bit thick, just so the surface comes out nice. Especially if you print it like this, sorry, like that, then it's nice to have it thick, so when it prints it, it can actually print it, and it's not too thin for the nozzle. So that's good. And you'll notice that it's only on one of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to use another circular pattern. You'll remember that we did a circular pattern up here to pattern around the surfaces. But instead of doing that, we're going to use it to pattern around the extrude. So you see there, we just want to do that to all the faces. And so instead of actually having to draw a sketch on each of the faces and extruding, this is a little bit easier and a little bit cleaner, if I do say so myself. So we're going to make another construction axis. Click on that. Oh, come on. I want this to be, no, not that. Let me hide these curves, these old axes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe if I right click on them, I can say hide all curves. There you go. That is my origin. Oh, actually, let me show you something with that. If you're having trouble trying to click on something like you'll see here, it's only clicking on all these other axes. You can actually press this button, whatever it's called, that button, and then oh whoops, I want to press it a little bit closer to where I want, and then it'll show you a menu of all the things that are near that point where you clicked. So there's this, there's that, all these construction things, the construction axes. Anyhow, and so I want a vertex of origin to be my origin. Anyhow, and then through individual identities and then faces and vertices, I want that face, and that'll make a nice little line right here that I can use to pattern this around. Okay, so let's go back up into this menu, click circular pattern. I want to do an entity pattern. So before we did a part pattern because we had the parts, we had the surfaces that we wanted to pattern around. So now what we're going to be doing is a feature pattern. And what a feature pattern is it patterns something over here. So you could pattern extrude, or you could pattern a remove face, or stuff like that. I mainly use that to pattern extrudes though. So we want a feature pattern. We want the feature to be patterned, to be the extrude, the axis of pattern is going to be this axis that we just made. And instead of 4, we want 3. Click the little check mark, and there we have our corner. I'm going to right click on these axes and say hide all curves because we don't need those right now. So yeah, this corner is starting to shape up. Let's do a couple last minute fillets and it should be good. So I'm going to click up in this fillet thing, and I want to fillet this area here just to make it a little bit stronger. We want a lot less of a fillet though, so maybe 1 millimeter. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And while we do that, why not fillet this as well? Maybe not. It's not wanting to fillet this here. Ah, there you go. We can fillet all this. It's a little bit weird because of the way that I made this as a extrude instead of a revolve, but that's okay. How about we also fillet this? Just once again to make it a little bit stronger. You wouldn't have to do that with if you were injection molding it, unless you just wanted to do that to make it look nice. And we can also fillet these while we're at it, just to make that a little bit smoother. Now I want to do another fillet, and this fillet is going to be 0.5 millimeters, and that's just for these. Oh, whoops, not that. Oh, that works. Anyhow, I just wanted these two edges here, and that looks good. I'll fillet this just to clean that last bit up. If you're wondering why I'm not filleting any of these parts here, I'm going to do that all in one step. So I'm just going to save that until I do that. And I guess that was the last step. I can fillet these areas here. Oh, I probably should do that before I do this. Let me edit this. I do not want these fillets. Oh, come on. There you go. I want to fillet these first. And since I'm squaring off the corners, I'll make that a little bit less. And instead of clicking in here and typing in a number, you can actually just drag that. I'm going to do a little bit, sort of like a GTS, so not that squared off. A little bit more than that. Let's just round that off to 3 millimeters. And that looks pretty good for the corner. Once again, let me just finish this off by filleting these edges here at 0.5 millimeters. That looks good. And that's our corner done. Can't think of that much stuff I want to change. Maybe I'll move this face. Ooh, where's move face? Move face. Can move this face. Come on. No, not that way, the other way. And let's make that 1. Ooh, it doesn't like doing a move face when there's fillets. So I'm gonna just click OK there, and I'm gonna drag this before the fillets. There you go. Magic. I guess I can use that as one last sort of tip for this episode. This thing over here, this menu is actually interactive. So if you want to change anything, I think I showed you that before by changing the original sketch, but you can also just drag stuff around. So you can say, I want this to happen first. So you can like drag it to where you want it to be, like it was here before, or you can drag this bar up here to go back in time, and then click, or yeah, it's kind of cool, you're like time traveling. And then after that you can click, what was I doing? Move face, yeah, so you can click move face, and then click on this. I want it to be in the opposite direction, and 5 millimeters is a little bit on the liberal side. 1 millimeter, that looks pretty good. Click the check mark, and then after I've done that, I can drag back up here, and it'll all work out. Let me just undo that. There you go. So yeah, that's another thing which just sort of shows the power of CAD tools with this, just being able to go back and change anything that you want. But yeah, that'll be all for this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe and do all that good stuff, and hit the little notification bell just to make sure that you don't miss the next episode, where we're going to be tackling the edge right here. This edge, we're going to be tackling that edge, and we're going to be turning it into something better. So that's all for today's video. I'll see you guys next week, and yeah. Well, that's all for this week. Well, that's all for today's video. I guess I'll see you guys next week. Well, that's all for today's video. I guess I'll see you guys next week.